In what is now a completely undeniable scandal of this very early Trump administration, we have learned that indeed the Trump aides, Trump campaign aides and staffers that were suspected to have been in contact with Russian officials were indeed in contact with Russian officials during the 2016 presidential campaign. You'll probably recall that one of the constant and repeated denials from the Trump team has been we were never in touch with Russia during the presidential election. We know, though, about countless overlaps between Trump and Russia because they've been revealed. Russian hacking, for example, directed by the highest authority in Russia, was meant to help Donald Trump defeat Hillary Clinton. We know that shamed National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, well, now former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, did indeed discuss Russian sanctions before the inauguration with the Russian ambassador to the U.S., something that he lied about and denied, and again, ultimately resigning in shame just about 48 hours ago. Donald Trump's former campaign manager, Paul Manafort, resigned after his dealings with Russia, including possible illegal payments from Russia, were uncovered. And then we have the Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, couldn't possibly be more Russia connected, actually was given an award by Vladimir Putin about what a great friend to Russia he was in his dealings as former Exxon CEO. And of course, we have the blackmail file relating to what Russia has on Donald Trump. It's been partially proven to contain accurate information, and we may soon learn more about the accuracy of the contents. But, Trump's team wasn't in touch with Russia during the campaign, right? Right? Wrong. Phone records and intercepted phone calls now confirm that members of Donald Trump's presidential campaign team, as well as other Trump associates, were in contact with senior Russian intelligence officials in the year leading up to the election. So many sub-stories to this. We've learned that the information that I just relayed to you was actually obtained around the same time that American intelligence and law enforcement discovered Russian hacking was meant to help Trump by hacking into the DNC. We now know that James Comey could have also done a press conference about this information, but he chose not to and only did a press conference about the investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails, because none of it was political, right, Pat? Except we had a press conference and a letter from James Comey at the FBI about Hillary Clinton, but not about what was being investigated regarding Donald Trump. That in and of itself is a scandal, too.
We'll just have to wait and see what the intelligence community comes up with, I guess. I mean, when the initial BuzzFeed story broke, I think there were plenty of red flags and reasons to be skeptical.
Yeah.
But now that 9 U.S. intelligence officials are confirming parts of the story, now that we have these intercepted phone calls and records, I mean, there's a lot more legitimacy here.
And let's continue exploring that legitimacy. Now that we know that Donald Trump's team and Russian intelligence were in contact, the question is, do we have proof that they were actively colluding? We don't. We don't currently have proof of that. But again, with every passing week, almost with every passing day, I think is more accurate, the known connections between Donald Trump and Russia are growing. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's ultimately proven. Here's what's amazing. The intercepted phone data shows that when Donald Trump publicly would show up and all of a sudden we would say, why is he saying so many positive things about Russian President Vladimir Putin? The phone records show, Pat, that Trump associates were in touch with Russian intelligence during that time. The timing of this could not be more damning. Indeed, one of the people on these intercepted calls was Paul Manafort. This is the biggest scandal-ridden administration of the last 20 years, and we're 25 days in.
And just look back at the interviews of what Trump has said about Putin and Russia. He would never criticize them.
Yeah.
Even when Bill O'Reilly, one of his teammates in the Republican field, would say something like, well, Putin's a bad guy. He kills a lot of people. He would write that off and say, well, we do the same thing. It's not so bad.
Absolutely stunning defense from anybody, but particularly from a Republican. And as usual, Donald Trump is writing it all off. He tweeted about it this morning saying, this Russian connection nonsense is merely an attempt to cover up the many mistakes made in Hillary Clinton's losing campaign. Who's talking about the mistakes made by Hillary Clinton at this point, such that you would need something so elaborate to cover it up? It doesn't make any sense. Also, Donald Trump tweeting later on that what matters here is that this information was leaked. Remember when we had the Hillary Clinton email stuff going on? And at the time, Trump was saying, hey, how it was leaked doesn't matter. We should only focus on the contents. And now all of a sudden, Donald Trump doesn't want to focus on the contents. He wants to focus only on how we found out about this. The one other thought about this from the Russian perspective. There is a geopolitical book by Alexander Dugin called The Foundations of Geopolitics, the Geopolitical Future of Russia. It's from 1997. And there's a quote that I'm going to read to you, which is very relevant to what's going on right now. Quote, in the United States, Russia should use its special forces within the borders of the United States to fuel instability and separatism. For instance, provoke African-American racists. Russia should introduce geopolitical disorder into internal American activity, encouraging all kinds of separatism and ethnic, social, and racial conflicts, actively supporting all dissident movements, extremist, racist, and sectarian groups, thus destabilizing internal political processes in the U.S. It would also make sense simultaneously to support isolationist tendencies in American politics. 20 years ago, this was written. It is happening. It is happening. And there are two major stories here in my mind, Pat. Number one is the facts, right? The facts of what we are learning regarding communication between the Trump campaign and Russian intelligence. But there's another story, which is the fact that the Donald Trump team has been blanket denying all of this for as long as we remember as lies. They have been lying to us.
And let's remember that free and fair elections are a hallmark of our democracy. And if there was an interference there, I mean, that's Watergate 2.0.
Yeah, and increasingly, that's the comparison that's being made, which is there are a lot of aspects like Watergate. And I mean, it's just so naive, apparently, Pat, to think that the rule of law and separation of powers and actual outside non-political investigations into these things might take place. But at the end of the day, InfoWars, Breitbart, and Fox News aren't reporting on this, so I guess it must all be fake news. When does anyone recall, by the way, this level of hostility and opposition between the sitting president and intelligence agencies? That's another aspect to this that is absolutely, if I were Trump and I was learning all of the stuff that Intel has on me, I don't know that I'd be continually picking fights with them.
Yeah, I mean, to answer your question, maybe J. Edgar Hoover during his reign, but I mean, you have to go back pretty far.
You got to go back pretty far to get to that.